Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Max Potential podcast. Each week, we chat with leaders, innovators, and visionaries who share their secrets to success. Max Potential is your go to for actionable insights and inspiring stories. Today, I have with me Takisha Bartley. She is the president and CEO of the HR consulting firm Bartley Consulting Services, LLC. Welcome to the podcast. So glad to have you here today, Takisha.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, can you please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your company, and your role within it?
Sure. So as mentioned, I am president and CEO of Bartley Consulting Services. So we are an HR consulting firm and we provide fractional services for HR services for small businesses. Institutions that don't really have in-house HR and maybe don't need someone full-time, we would provide those services to make sure that you're covered, you have the people that you need, and that your business is not at risk.
Great. Great. So, switching gears a little bit, I always like to ask listeners, what was your first job? And is there one thing that you learned from that job that you still use today?
Yeah, so my first job was actually at Thomson Reuters, and I was a coordinator, recruiting coordinator there. And I think what I learned there, even though it was a pretty junior role, is it's more of a concept, right? Of that you have to really ask for what you want. So at the time, we were going through an acquisition due to an M&A, and I was in grad school and wanted to learn more about change management. And during this process, I was able to, I mentioned this to our director of communications, and he said, hey, I'll show you the process. And he mentored me on change management principles, many of which I apply today. But I would say more than the practical principles, it's just to ask, right? That there's so many people who don't ask and they get overlooked. And you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you and to coach you. So just don't be afraid to raise your hand when you're interested in learning something.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I absolutely have done that several times in my career where I just had an interest. That's how I got into marketing, right? I wanted to
That's
get into
right.
marketing out of recruiting, and I just literally said, "Can I manage your Twitter account?" And next thing
Right.
you know, career in marketing and a job opened up.
That's
So
right.
I think the advice around, asking for what you want and putting it out there is huge. So, um, what did you want to be when you were a kid, and do you do that today?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be an actress. I was big into performing arts, so no, I am not an actress, as you can see. But I'm still creative, right? And I still enjoy thinking outside the box. I'm not, afraid to try new things and meet different types of people. And I think that those qualities did stem from my background in performing arts. So it's
Mm,
something that I was able to take away and use to start my own business. And it's also something that made me fearless, I think, when it comes to again, trying new things, meeting new people, asking for advice, and being able to be adaptive, to different types of personalities.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think it helped you with like speaking and being able to connect with people as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Because when you're trained in, performing arts in some way, one of the things that people do tend to focus on is inflection and how you speak and your communication skills. And I was an undergraduate major in communications, and a lot of those. I would say characteristics ended up overlapping. So 100%, in terms of communication, from performing arts, that definitely helped me 100%.
Very cool. Last question on that. Any favorite play, or were you in a commercial? Did you have
Uh,
any?
no, I wasn't in a commercial. I probably could have been. You know what? It really wasn't. My family is like immigrants, so they were like, you got to do practical things. They weren't really big into.
Or like
They
they're like,
really weren't big into like supporting that. So it didn't go too far beyond, I would say, college. Like my mom was like,
okay.
listen, I'm not gonna pay for you to be some theater major. So I had to really kind of reshift into something more practical. But again, I think in anything that you're trained in and that you learned, you can take some kind of transferable skill because there's so many things that do overlap.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your journey, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, so I would say for me specifically, as a both a woman and a person of color, I would say, likely just like being overlooked, I think, in the workplace for opportunities. And that's not something that's unique to me. Only it's something that has been shared with me with other people. So I found that the first thing that was important was finding places that really embrace diversity. And now it's such a big thing. And back then it really wasn't. It was kind of on the precipice um, of employment, and a factor that people started to look at. But understanding what are the practices and the programs that employers had when it came to women and people of color to feel heard and valued, right? So whether that was employee resource groups or just teams that were dedicated to what's now DEI, those were things that I would look for in employers, and I would ask them about their level of commitment, and how it's been demonstrated in the past.
Which is funny because now it's almost more of, this next generation is really expecting that. Like
Absolutely.
they're like, what's your commitment to diversity? What's your commitment to the planet? How do you do good for the world? Like you can't just be a company now that like, I mean, you can, but
Yeah.
the new generation is really looking for that as well. Like to say, hey, let's build a workforce. And all the studies have shown, right, that when you have a more diverse workforce, you're actually more profitable and you're actually a better run organization. I don't know the study off the top of my mind, but like they've shown and compared and seen like, okay, this can really be make a difference. And so let's not be overlooking people that, you know, could make this place actually even stronger, in that sense. So
Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. And again, this was like 20 years ago, right? Where that just really wasn't the topic of discussion in that way. And I don't think that the commitment was there consistently, but now it is a requirement, for many young people, Gen Z. They're not just looking for money, right? And so you're finding with different generations, they are valuing different things. And so that's kind of changing what is making employers attractive. So that has now been something that has been proven to be a mandate I think, for the current generation.
yeah, and I think if companies want to be competitive, they have to, lean in. You
Mhm.
don't have to, but if you don't, it's funny. I've had people in that generation ask me for a mental health day off.
Oh, that's a thing now too. Yeah, we were going
I
way
was like,
beyond. We're going way beyond just the traditional, what
it's
was.
definitely a shift. Like I feel like
um,
for me, it was the last 20 years. Always felt like, unless you're like literally you get to work, right? But then it's like this
that's
whole
right.
idea. And I think COVID made us reflect on that too, right? It made us all kind of take a step back, saying like work is important, but like, look, the world stopped.
That's right.
And what mattered? It was your family, it
That's
was your
right.
friends. And then you took a pause to be like, is there a better way for work to come into life? Like, can we have better balance? And I think everything has a season.
Hmm.
But with the tools we have today in corporate America, right? We have jobs that can have more flexibility in a way that couldn't, which allow for things like, more support at home for children or even your hobbies. You don't have to have a kid. Maybe you
That's
really want
right.
to go
Yeah,
on a
that's
soccer
right.
team, like I don't know what it is. I feel like the highlights usually on people with children, but I remember, having hobbies outside of work too. So,
Yeah, you
before.
want something that is going to work for your lifestyle, right? I think people are over, hiding themselves or having that kind of imposter syndrome, and so they want to work for a company that is going to embrace their personal lifestyle the best. So absolutely.
Yeah. I think those things can also feed into being a better employee. I know I get a lot of my
Oh,
ideas
yeah,
come when I'm on a run. When I'm out on a run, all of a
absolutely.
sudden, and I've got like a little system where like I talk into the phone because I know I'm going to forget. And I'm like, this is the idea for later.
Yeah, or also you just feel also, I think, more loyal, to
Yes.
employers who are more flexible and allow you to do certain things. There's so many people that I've known who've said, I won't leave this company because of the flexibility that they give me. So I don't, even if every day is not good, this means so much to me. And so I think when you're talking about retention, and engagement, you have to consider those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question. Tell me a time where you took a risk and it paid off.
Yeah, I would say now. I would say now, for sure, as an entrepreneur. I mean, this has been the biggest risk I've taken, and the biggest growth also simultaneously that I've experienced. I think in corporate, you grow laterally in your field, but you grow in a very broad way, when you're working, for yourself, because you initially start off kind of doing everything, or at least learning, various disciplines that you haven't had to really focus on in the past. So even though it's still, earlier days, I would say going through this process has really expanded my mind inside and outside of work. I mean, my lens just has expanded as I look at, stores that I shop at, and, maybe the way that they can get more customers. And then
So
it's,
tell us, so what is the transition you made, just for people who may not know your field?
yeah, so I've always worked in corporate. I spent most of my career in banking, in HR leadership, and in New York City. And I'm now in Atlanta, and launched my own HR company. Again, servicing small business. Really wanted to take those best practices that I feel like small businesses had
Mhm.
exposure to,
Yep.
and give them the opportunity to really kind of grow and be sustainable. So that's the areas that I focus on, and definitely looking to continually expand it with workforce development opportunities,
Mhm.
within community. And so it's just more personal, personally fulfilling work for me, and so it's something I really enjoy.
I bet you there's a huge need for small businesses, because you can't necessarily hire like a full scale corporate
That's
person.
right.
So
That's
it's
right. Yeah, a lot of, and that's why we do fractional, because
yeah.
most times I think with small businesses, they don't even think about HR, and it's not their fault. It's just not an area that people tend to think about unless they're in a larger company. But you need people to grow. And you need, an HR team to make sure that you're growing effectively, right? When it comes to recruiting, when comes to making sure that your business is compliant with employment laws, obviously making sure from a cost benefit, all of these things that we're even talking about, right? What the workforce, how it's changing, things that larger employers can afford to outsource, right? Other firms to kind of tell them, here's the direction of the labor market, and so that they can adequately prepare and shift, that small businesses don't have that level of expertise. So there's a lot that we do offer that I think, again, smaller businesses just aren't traditionally aware of. And so for me, a lot of it has also just been strengthening the awareness of why you need HR, particularly to scale.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of circling back, how did it feel like right when you like made this decision officially? Like you're gonna
Yeah, it was
walk
scary.
away. Safety.
It
Yeah.
was very
Yeah.
scary. And I'm a very structured person. So, that was not a very easy decision, for me to make. But I think that, life is kind of fleeting. And if you have,
Mhm.
an idea, you don't want to just have it continuing to fester in your mind. I think you have to act on it in some way. And so for me, I look at life in the way of, at least I tried. I don't look
Yeah.
at it in a way of failure. And again, there's so much growth that comes from even failure, from even hardship, that I think you need to build character. So, it was definitely something that, again, it was scary. You're relying on yourself. You don't have, a traditional company backing you, but at the same time, that level of just self-reliance and confidence that you end up feeling, to me, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. That's really cool. I feel like, when I think about failure, I think it's more you're going to learn or you're going to succeed,
That's
right?
it.
That's it. And then I also feel like, I've heard people say, like, when you're trying to figure out what your life and you're thinking about a decision, like think about yourself on your deathbed, right? What is it that you're gonna wish you did? Like all these years
Yeah.
later, that like you just took one chance, or there's like that one thing. Like I think people, we often hear it's like they regret what they did not do or they did not try. you don't hear a list of like, well, I failed 6 times, and I wish I hadn't tried, right? It's like,
Yeah. And that was a thing for me as well. When I spoke to people, and these were strangers, right? These were like people that when I was opening up my, business number or, getting my, business license. And so many people were like, I'm just so proud of you. I wish I would have done this. And
yeah.
that's really a lot of what kept me going in the early days, was because I saw so many people who wanted to do this and just had a lot of regret. And I didn't want that to be me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, do you have a set of values and vision for your current life and career?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a values perspective, I am someone, I really, really believe in operating with integrity. I think that things like character matter, right? Because once you show bad character, people don't trust you and they don't want to work for you, right? So a lot of people have great skills, but not everybody's a good person. And to me, that's what going to get you the furthest. You do have to know your job, but are you trustworthy? Are you pleasant to work with? Do you go above and beyond for others when, they can't do anything for you? Those are the things that I found have gotten me further than just my skills. And those are the people that I want to work with as well. So I would just say, honestly, like just being a good person, making sure that you don't compromise yourself, or your character is really, really important, because people are watching even when you don't think they are, in both good and bad ways. Um, and then as far as vision for my life, I'm again very big into that whole work life integration. So being able to live a full life, a full rich life is important to me. I have a lot of different interests from I'm sure you might have remembered this, from traveling to scuba diving to the arts to sports. So being able to feel like I can do what I want to do, on my own time, but also to be able to give back. I've always been somebody who is, kind of community based. And so, again, that's part of, my company. One of the things that I want to help, particularly with underserved communities and people who are in those communities, to give them skills that can give them better quality lifestyles.
I love that. That was one value that my parents, specifically my mom, always was harped on was, we're very fortunate and you should always give back. Like there's
That's right.
always, right, always a way to give. And also to live. So like to figure out what you want to do and how you want to spend your time. But I think that value around community and all those things is like, find the thing that you feel most passionate about and,
Mhm.
give to that. So that's
Right.
that's powerful, I think. Um, okay, next question. Can you share any life hacks that have improved your overall well-being that you think might be helpful?
Um, life hacks. I would say physically, I like to run. I find that it helps clears my mind. Anything related to mental health for me is something that comes first, because I think that that will deteriorate you in every way if you allow it to. So, for me, if there's anything that compromises that, I just can't do it. And sometimes it's not a tangible thing that you can explain. It's just a feeling. And at this point in my life, I go with that, right? So not all money is good money. And then I would say also, I'm a spiritual person. So whether that's prayer or meditation, but those are things that ground me. I find when I'm overwhelmed and I need to make decisions, it tends to come from an emotional place, so I'll sleep on it. Like I've learned to just sleep on something,
Yes.
because 99% of the time I wake up with very full clarity. So, I would say don't devalue your sleep, but it's there to restore you mentally and physically. So
Yeah.
those are just some of the things that for me have been really helpful and are kind of my go-tos in terms of improvement of my well-being.
Yeah, I'm with you on the sleep, the running, all of those things. I feel like we've all as a society, at least in the United States and some other places, become much more conscious to like the level of importance of these things, right? Like it was,
Mhm.
I feel like in college you pull like that whole like all-nighter thing, but
Oh
really
yeah.
it shows your brain's not working on full capacity, right? So it's
Not
like
at
if
all.
you get a good night's sleep and completely, it can reset and clear whatever is happening.
It
Uh,
really does.
I've gotten into meditation, which it was a journey. That was a journey. The first time I meditated, I was like,
It's hard. It's hard. And if you're somebody and you're like me, that your brain is always going, it is so hard to
it,
shut off,
it's so,
like all the thoughts in your mind. And it really takes a lot of patience and practice. I still haven't mastered it by any means, but there was a monk actually who did a wellness, and he used to meditate for 12 hours a day. It's 12 hours a day. And I'm like, wow, like what do you have to do? How clear of a person do you have to be able to meditate for 12 hours and a day? So yeah.
pretty, pretty clear.
I don't want to do that, but but
Maxed out at about 30 minutes. That's usually about, like, if I can get to 30, I feel like a rock star. I'm like,
I
I'm a rock
30 is
star
good.
today. Yeah, and I started at like 1 minute intervals. Like that's all I could do. 1 minute, and it felt like 10 years.
Yes, good for you. No, that's exactly it. 30 minutes is definitely like enough time.
It
Definitely quality time for sure.
it is, and I've learned to be patient with it, but I also find it's something I have to practice. So if I fall off for a period of time, I get back to it. Like I have some grounding in it, but I try to be patient with myself. I'm like, okay, we'll do like a 10-minute one. Some meditation is better than no meditation. It just takes me
Hmm.
out, right? So, but
Hmm.
it's definitely the older I've gotten to, I've become more spiritual around like this idea that, you're connecting into like the world and a higher power and a higher energy and something along those lines.
That's
So
right.
I think that's hugely important as you go along in life. So, all right, last question. What advice do you have for our listeners to maximize their potential?
I think when it comes to potential, well, number one, you want to learn as much as you can about your industry, right? Always make sure that you're seeking, I think, better ways to, improve your company, even if that means giving yourself projects. I've done that. I know you've done that. And we did that together. So I think that's important, right? It allows you to learn, but then it also allows you to prove your worth to your company, right? You're again going up above and beyond. And then I would also say to, seek out mentors. That was something I didn't think about, being young. But none of us know everything, right? Speak to people who are in positions who you want to be in and ask them for guidance. That also cuts down on the amount of mistakes that you'll make. And then the value that you can add at a quicker pace than if you were to do it alone. So I would say, those things for me, if I could have gone back and done it better, those are the things I would have focused on.
Those are great. I definitely agree. Asking people who are doing it and living what you want. Most people are more than happy to share. If you're coming from a genuine place, they're
Right.
happy to give back. They're happy to share that, here's what I can give you, I think that's a very cool thing. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Takisha, for coming. Where can our listeners find you in terms of if they want to connect with you online or learn a bit more about your business?
Yeah, so if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free. My name is spelled Takesha, Bartley, B as in boy, Artley. And as far as our website is bartleyhrservices.com. And contact information is through both of those forums. Happy to speak with anyone who has any questions.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Takisha. Have
Thank
a
you as well.